we will look into this quote of Sri Brahmananda's. He says, by hearing, thinking, meditating on the sense of I am, of your own existence, of my own existence, by hearing, thinking, meditating on the sense of I am, the light of the self is kindled. And once that light is kindled, the individual I becomes free from all impurities. It begins to shine forth as the universal I, just as gold shines when it is purified by fire. Here you heard him say that the individual I is converted, transformed into the universal I. He actually told us that the universal I is the I that is unselfish, the I that is not only interested in its own well-being. The individual I, we come first. Usually, unless we're in our real state, we want to please ourselves or help ourselves before we can place our attention on others. But once our inner light, which is our real nature, is kindled, is shining, is burning, once that happens, it's impossible to think of yourself first. In the beginning, you have your family as the primary concern. And later, it becomes your friends, your country, your nation. And later, universal I includes all the countries, all the wars, all the people. So you don't have your favorite war and your not so favorite war. Krishnamurti said that. He said there comes a time when war is just horrible for all the people involved. He put it very nice. He said, you people who have your favorite war and your not so favorite war, you're violent people. And we all cowered before him. That was Krishnamurti, not Sri Brahmananda. He said there is the individual I, which is the personal I, the personality, and there is the universal I, which is the expanded I that involves all people. You could call it the reform state, the universal I, where we want to improve things for the whole world, for everyone in it, even our so-called enemies. But then there's a third state. It's called the cosmic state. And we move from the universal state to the cosmic state when? That's my first question. When do we move from the universal state to the cosmic state? What do we have to do to be more in the cosmic state than even the universal state? It's a hard question. I'll give you a hint. In the cosmic state, there are no others. There's only one, meaning one self, one soul, oversoul, the cosmic state. And to be in the cosmic state, you have to go away. You have to disappear. So the more we're in the meditative state, we're beyond time and space, name and form, the more we slip into our real state. The movement from the universal to the cosmic plane, in which there are no others, is through either the witnessing process, which leads to meditation, or to your knowing, being in a state of jnana yoga, where you just know, to be aware when your thinking is interfering with your natural state. Our natural state is all-powerful and all-knowing and all-loving. What more do you need? That's our natural state. So if you're totally convinced that it's only unnecessary thinking that's in your way of being in your natural form, that knowledge is the only real discipline needed. That will work inwardly as inner discipline, knowing that it's only the thinking mind that's in our way of happiness. The highest state of love, divine love or bhakti, is beyond scriptures. Don't look for it in the scriptures. Don't look for it in any book. Better put the scriptures down, put the books down, and just feel as you move among people and in sorrow. The highest state of love is beyond scriptures. Before that love, liberation is nothing but a byproduct. For this supreme love cannot be expressed in language. Supreme divine love is experienced directly in the same way that a man or a woman who is unable to speak experiences the taste of something deliciously sweet, yet cannot verbally express it. Think of a person who's unable to speak, and yet you put a piece of ripe watermelon in his mouth and you say, "How is that?" And you'll see his whole face radiate with pleasure. Well, unconditional love or divine love, when we are experiencing that directly, we cannot talk. Ever since I became convinced by Sri Brahmananda that what we really need is to practice witnessing in order to be more and more established in the meditative state, which is our key to freedom, to be in the meditative state. The effortless state of awareness is the meditative state. Effortless state of awareness. That's the meditative state. Once I became convinced through experimenting, Guruji never said, "Just believe me, follow me, trust me." He wanted us all independent. He said, "What happens when I leave my body? You're all going to be crying and going back to where you were when I met you. Waste of time. You do that every lifetime, not this lifetime. I want you to be established in that state so you can have me anytime," he said about him, or any person that has been of value to you. You can be in direct contact. So, but ever since I heard that, I've been trying to convince people that they too should experiment by practicing witnessing. This is a question, and you find this question in the book I Am That, and the chapter was Man is Not the Doer. But I'm more interested in this question that came up. The questioner said, "You are reducing our practice to simple attention." You're reducing, he used the word sadhana. Sadhana means practice, but I'm using practice here. You are reducing our practice to simple attention, witnessing. How is it that other teachers teach complete, difficult, and time-consuming courses, and you don't? Listen to his answer. "Maharaj, the gurus usually teach the practices by which they themselves have reached their goal. That's why our ashram is the leading ashram, the most famous ashram when it comes to the school of Sanskrit. Our teacher was considered one of the top Sanskrit scholars in the world. He said the gurus take the practice by which they themselves have reached their goal. Whatever their goal may be, this is but natural, because their own practices they know intimately. I, Nisargadatta Maharaj, was taught to give attention to my sense of I am, and I found it supremely effective. Therefore, I can speak of it with full confidence. But often people come with their bodies, brain, and minds so mishandled, so perverted and weak, that the state of formless attention is beyond them. Many, many, many people say, I can't witness. My mind is just too restless. I can't do it. This is what he's saying. People come, they've had lifetimes of bad education, bad teaching, of terrible shocks. They can't do it. They can't go into a deeper and more direct search. In such cases, when people cannot witness without the mind interfering, in such cases, some simpler token of earnestness is appropriate. Some simpler token of earnestness, of our sincerity, is appropriate. So the repetition of a mantra or gazing at a picture will prepare the body and mind for a deeper and more direct search. And I will say this, that even if you're established in witnessing, at times of crisis or calamity, it's very difficult to witness, because what you're witnessing is the shock and the sorrow and the thoughts that are with the event. If there's a calamity or a crisis, you can't witness at that time. That's a good time to chant, or to sing, or to read a spiritual book or a poem out loud over and over. It's a good thing to use anything that's strong to stop the mind, arrest the mind, because it's only the memory that's causing the grief and the sorrow. It's only the memory. He says, after all, it is earnestness that is indispensable. Earnestness that is the crucial factor in your practice. Practice is only a vessel, and it must be filled to the brim with sincerity, with earnestness, which is but love in action. For nothing can be done without love. Questioner, but we love only ourselves. Maharaj, and he's bound to surprise you. If you haven't heard him before, he's bound to surprise you. He doesn't answer the way you think he's going to answer. The questioner just said, but we love only ourselves. Maharaj, if this were so, it would be splendid. If this were so, it would be splendid. Love yourself wisely, and you will reach the summit of perfection. Everybody loves his body, but few love their real being. Questioner, does my real being need my love? Maharaj, your real being is love itself, and your many loves are its reflections according to the situation at the moment. So we project onto somebody our own light, our own love. That's why so often we find out later that it was really our projection or reflection of our own love that we were seeing in the person. We say to people, oh, I can't wait for you to meet my friend. So sweet, so good. You meet the friend, a terrible friend. Just terrible. What's happening is exactly what he's saying. We project, we're in a state of love, and we meet somebody who comes close in height, in shape, in smiles, in interest, and we project onto that person. The questioner says, we are selfish. We know only self-love. Maharaj, that's good enough for a start. At least you love yourself. By all means, wish yourself well. Think over, feel out deeply what is really good for you, and strive for it earnestly. But you have to think what's really good for you and strive for that earnestly. We just think that our sense gratification is good for us. We enjoy our pleasures, but is that really good for us? Most of the time not. What's really good for us, he says, search out deeply, think over deeply what's really good for you, and strive for that earnestly. Very soon you will find that the real is your only good. That being in your real state, as you really are, that's the only thing that's really good for you. When you're in the real state, you can only eat what's good for you. You can only sleep the number of hours that are good for you. Your body will start to tell you what's good for you and what's bad for you. So in order to know that, we have to be in our real form, in our real state. Questioner, yet I don't understand why the various gurus insist on prescribing complicated and difficult practices. Don't they know better? Maharaj, remember he's enlightened. It's not what you do, but what you stop doing that matters. It's not what we do, it's what we stop doing that matters. The people who begin their practice are so feverish and restless that they have to be very busy to keep themselves on the track. An absorbing routine is good for them. After some time, they quiet down and turn away from effort. In peace and silence, the skin of the eye disappears, dissolves, and the inner and the outer become one. The real practice is effortless. Just witness. Because witnessing not only quiets the mind, it arrests the mind. It stops the mind. Questioner, I have sometimes the feeling that space itself is my body. Maharaj, when you are bound by the illusion, I am this body, you are merely a point in space, merely a moment in time. But when the self-identification with the body is no more, then all space and time are in your mind. I don't want new people to worry about what I just said. Just let it exist in you, because one day you'll hear it said again and you'll go, aha, because you'll be prepared for that. When you hear truth, and it's truth that's just meant for you, you know it's grace, and you don't know what you did to deserve that. You just don't know. It's a message directly for you. That's what I needed to hear. My feeling, this is Maharaj speaking, my feeling is that all that happens in space and time happens to me. That every experience is my experience. Every form is my form. That's because he's in the state of pure consciousness. What I take myself to be becomes my body, and all that happens to that body becomes my mind. But at the root of the universe, there is pure awareness. Beyond space and time, here and now. Know it. Know that state of pure awareness to be your real being and act accordingly. Know that state of pure awareness to be your pure being and act accordingly. It means don't degrade yourself. Don't shame this glorious being that you are. Use it for the highest purposes. Know it, and don't do anything that degrades you. It's in the Gita, for the self alone is the friend of the self, and the self alone is the enemy of the self. Means we have to use this mind as you're using it now to listen and discriminate as you listen to these words. Everybody who has listened intently tonight with the determination to learn more, that will help you to finally break this cycle of stress and suffering. Every one of you who came with that sincere desire has learned something transformational, has learned something that you are going to apply, and it will instantly reduce the pain and the shocks that you've been receiving lately. Questioner: so what difference will it make in action what I take myself to be? Actions just happen according to circumstances. We've heard this. Actions just happen by themselves. Destiny moves by itself. But now you're going to hear the response, the final response tonight of this master. Circumstances and conditions rule the ignorant. The knower of reality is not compelled. The only law he obeys is that of love. The reason the law of love works is that we cannot be in the state of love if the mind is also there. For love to happen, no mind, no mind. Any questions about anything I just said? Yes.
What do you mean by speeding up the destiny? What is that?
Well, if you keep marrying the same kind of person who has given you trouble and hasn't been able to love you back, you get a divorce, and the next person looks different, but sounds the same, acts the same, and you're not seeing that, you're going to have to keep going through that process because you're not understanding what it is in that relationship that's making you unhappy. So it becomes like a recurring nightmare. If you don't understand the reason for this dream to keep coming, if you don't understand the nightmare itself, then you'll have to keep having a nightmare again and again. But if you meet somebody and that person is selfish and nasty and even hurtful physically, and you still want that person to love you, so he leaves or she leaves, and the next person you introduce to me is exactly the same as the other one. You're not speeding up your destiny, you're slowing it down. Your destiny is to finally neutralize that person, so you don't have her as a mother or him as a father or as a lover or as a husband. You don't want to have to go through that. But if you're just paying attention to your instant sense gratification, you absolutely must have this type of personality who never loved you as your father or as your mother. You must have that person love you. You're slowing down your destiny. And you have to keep repeating the same lifetime again and again. Whereas if you're alert, you suddenly say, wait a minute, I went out with someone who's exactly like my first wife. No wonder I was interested. That person calls you and wants to see you again, or a man reminds you of your first husband, or a friend who betrayed you. So beautiful and sweet and attentive, but you learned it's like, Gertie described people like that, like in your country, like a cobra. They dance, They mesmerize you. What's that? This person you loved and whom you thought loved you said something that he can't take back. That will stay with you the rest of your life. Why would someone who loves you want to hurt you so badly? Well, the next time you have forgotten, you still want that kind of person to love you because you never got it from your father or mother, so you're looking for it in a husband and wife now. The second time, if you're watching, the person seems nice, seems sweet, seems lovely, but then says something sarcastic, a little bit nasty, and you say, no. I don't need to waste my time or allow myself to be hurt like this again. Have our senses gratified by paying attention. Will I gain more or lose more by this new acquisition? Whether it's a house, a car, a child, a husband, a wife, a friend, will I be losing more or gaining more by this? If the answer is you'll be losing more, then you put an end to it right then and there, before it gets to the point where you really are submerged in it. Do you understand? It's paying attention. Paying attention. When you finally are able to see, it's because you've learned the art of quieting the mind. It's only a quiet mind that can see, not a needy one. This reading begins like this. The most basic thing to be understood is that you cannot understand your own nature. The most basic thing to be understood is that you cannot understand your own nature. This is from a book called Light on the Path. It's a theosophical work with commentary by Osho. You cannot understand your own nature. You cannot understand your own heart, your own being, and that's because of your personality, because of a false entity that you have created around you. We live encased in personalities. Personalities are false. They are simply masks, facades to be shown to others. But this facade becomes so deep that you forget your original face completely. Showing your false faces to others by and by, you get identified with them, and you begin to think that these are your faces. Then your original face, your real face, remains hidden. I was in the theater for a while, and when I would do a scene, and I would do it well, I was a good actress, my very good teacher would call out, boring, and I was doing very well. And the other in the class said, no, she's not. He said, boring. Joan, I can't find you. Where are you? And I say, I'm the character. I'm the brother. And he say, where's your rage? I said, it doesn't call for any rage. He said, it's Medea. It calls for rage even when it doesn't call for rage. It's Medea. And I'd say, well, it's coming, my rage. I want to see it now. I said, well, I don't feel rage. And he kept at me, and I was furious at him. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm not continuing. Now continue. That's the rage. Howsoever you act, whatsoever you say, remember well whether it comes from your heart or from your personality. Make the distinction clear. It will be a great help in the inner search. You go on cultivating your personality. when you are feeling hurt within, sad, even then you go on smiling. Consider whether your smile is just a painted smile, just on the lips, an exertion by the lips, or whether it's coming from something deep down and spreading on the lips. Is the source rooted somewhere deep, or is there no source for your smile? Is it just a painted smile? So when you smile, observe it, and you will come to know when the smile is false and when the smile is real. When someone is sad, or someone is in misery, or someone has lost a friend, a beloved, a husband, a wife, you go to him, your face looks sad and sorrowful. Remember and consider deep within whether the sadness is real or whether you're just displaying it. And deep down, you are simply bored sometimes. Deep down, you're trying to figure out how to leave. Deep down, you are thinking of other things, not at all interested in the person. Now that sounds cruel. We're being asked to be honest, so we get to know ourselves intimately. Many times we do a nice thing. We go to a funeral, we hate to go. I do not like to go to funerals because I don't think anybody has died, and that's not a good person to talk to at a funeral. They sometimes ask me to give the eulogy, and I say, you are never born and you never die. And the relatives look. They shouldn't ask me to do that because I can only do what I know. He's saying it's not healthy for us not to be aware that that's not what we're really feeling, because we'll get into the habit of putting on that face and that smile, and no one who has any intuitive power will trust us after that, because they'll know. They'll know. I will always know if someone is pretending to empathize with me. Meditators know. And we forgive because we know they're trying to be nice. But you just don't listen in the same way as you listened before you found out that they're putting on something to make you happy. They're not really telling you their real feelings. He says, go on considering this, and you will come to know two different layers within you. The false one is the personality. The word personality is very significant. It comes from a Greek word, persona. Persona means the mask. In Greek drama, the actors used masks, false faces. Those false faces were called personae, and from that, the word personality comes. It is beautiful. It means that you are acting with a false face. It is not you. You are hiding behind the false face because you cannot reveal your real face. Now, I'm not saying to necessarily go on revealing your real face everywhere. There's no need. Somewhere the persona is needed. But be clear that this is the persona. This is not you. Inside, you must know when you are acting and when you are real. And my advice, because he gave it all the time, if you check and you find that the friends you have, the company you're keeping, the environment you're in is causing you to use a false face more than your real being, take note of that and ask if you're losing more than you're gaining. Take note. Because if you can't be your genuine self more of the time than less, you're losing, we're losing. You don't want to lose you, because you are real and you are extremely important on your journey. You have to know who you are, not who you were made to be to survive in this world. It's easier to change you than to change the world. You change and you will be brought automatically, magnetically, to a better place and better people, because they will be attracted to you and you to them, and the environment will choose you where you can live without being ill, but you have to first be in touch with you. He said, inside you must know when you are acting and when you are real. You must not be deceived by your acting. You must not become identified with your acting. I know that faces are needed. Otherwise, it will be difficult to live in society, very difficult. Faces are good in a way because they facilitate. They work as lubricants. And in a big society with so many people, you need not reveal your reality everywhere. But you must know what is a mask and what is real. You must be aware of what is going on within. What is within is your real being, and what is going on the surface is just a social utility. If you can make a clear-cut distinction between you and your personality, then personality becomes just like clothing. You can drop it at any moment and become naked, become real, in other words. If you cannot drop it, it means that you're so attached to it that the distinction is not there. The separation is not there. There is no gap. A gap is needed so that at least in your room, in your bathroom, you can put your personality away and become real. At least in meditation, you can throw away the personality and become real. There, it is not needed. In acting, there is a technique called a private moment, that you have to do something in front of a whole group of people you wouldn't ever do in front of anybody. And it's one of the most difficult techniques, to do something in public that you had only done in private before. And there was a wonderful actress in the room who was the first one that the teacher said, there, that's a private moment. The rest of us were struggling. But she came out and she went over to a mirror that we all could see. We could see the mirror and her face. We could see what she was doing. And she took a piece of tissue paper, wet it with her mouth, and put it between the large space in her front teeth, and just looked at herself. And we cringed. We cringed because she had such a large space that when you were up close, that's all you looked at. You tried not to look at it, but all you saw was that space. And until she did that, we didn't realize how painful it was for her to have it and not have the money to correct it. And she performed with that space. That's a private moment. And if you can start with little steps, being your private self in public, it will make a whole difference in your meditation, in your life, in your relationships. Don't care unless you're hurting someone. You don't want to hurt someone, but don't care what they think of you. Be silly, be outrageous if you're in that mood. And if they don't like it, don't see them again. They don't deserve you. It's okay as far as society is concerned. Use an unreal face when you go out. But when you go within, throw out that face completely. Don't get identified with it. Don't carry it inward. A day may come when you will become so strong that even in society you would like to move with a real face. But that depends on you. First, look inward, and at least momentarily put aside your personalities. Not until the bonds of personality are loosed can that profound mystery of self begin to be seen.